Okay, so before we start, I would just like to give a rundown of the basic structure of this discussion. So, first of all, the people that usually participate in this guest speaker session are in the top 20% of the UBS scoreboard that we have. So, UBS leaderboard is essentially a unicorn behavior scoreboard that we have in Deep Thought, which essentially calculates the performances of all the interns and all the people that work in Deep Thought. They assess their performances based on the various DT drills that we have that we conduct across time, across a week. And based on that, the people who are in the top 20% of the scoreboard get to attend this kind of guest speaker sessions with various thought leaders and various guest speakers that we have. So the basic structure goes basically around. So you can just give us a brief rundown about what work you're doing right now. How did you start? The rundown about that, and like after you give the rundown, we can all ask questions based on that, and you can give us clarifications and answers. So
Sure.
is it okay? Okay, then we can start, I guess.
Good evening, all. I guess I am an entrepreneur of sorts, mostly in the sustainability space, natural farming. My interests lie mostly in the learning space, learning systems. Um, I did not have too much time to prepare, but I'll share my journey so far. I did my schooling here in India, and I was fortunate to have some really amazing teachers and a house full of books. And I think that got me quite far. And the reason I emphasize a lot on good teachers and a house full of books is if you have read the book called Freakonomics, in that, one of the things that they talk about is how having access to books is very important, not somebody reading it to you. So nobody really read the books to me, but having our access to the books helped me a lot in becoming um, a good student, I guess, or a learner of sorts. And then the teachers that I had. So, for example, I'll give a little story of when I was in the 7th grade. I was a very mischievous student, and I would disrupt the class. Maybe because I had already learned a lot of what was being taught. And so the teacher of mine, math teacher, instead of disciplining me, what he did was he took me aside and he gave me some harder problems to solve. So I was happy, he was happy, because I would not disrupt the class anymore, and I had something to do. So anyway, so it's important to have really good teachers, and he also inspired me. Then I went on to the US, and when I landed there, I was late for my semester, so I ended up with classes all 6 weeks. So I would have class Saturday morning at 7, and then I would have class on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning. And if for anybody who has been to the US or that kind of system, that is horrible. As a student, you don't want to get up at 7 in the morning, and that to 6 days a week. So anyway, so that was the next semester. I understood that once you plan, you can pretty much finish all your credit hours, which is about 12, in about 3 days, and that too with good timing. So basically, you could start your day at 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon and finish it up. And so that is when my learning started. One is, if you plan ahead, then you can get better deals. There in the US, I also learned that um, different subjects, for example, in the first 2 years of undergrad, you have to take courses from different subjects. For example, you have to take one from natural sciences, one from phys ed, one from arts, no matter what you took on later. So basically, your junior year and your senior year, which is the third and the fourth year, are specifically for your major. But then before that, so that gives you a very good base. And even those base classes were very well structured. For example, one of the classes I had was an art appreciation. I had taken in India a lot of drawing classes, so to speak, um, for about maybe six years on and off, and I couldn't get past drawing something from a book. But whereas when I took a class in the US, it was very different. I had to look at light and shadow, try to figure out how to put it on paper, and then how to figure out optical illusion or introduce optical illusion into my drawings, and so on. And it was more a creative process. So that was another thing that I learned. And also, um, the whole course load was only 12 credit hours, which means that you have only 12 hours of lecture. The rest is self-directed learning. I mean, versus what I had seen in India was, 40 hours or whatever we have of constant instruction. So that was another thing that helped me, because then the rest of the time went into self-directed learning, lab work, and a lot of reading that the professors assign you or they suggested to you. And then the hands-on experience that gives you, because you have to spend a lot of time in the lab. Whether if you have an IT course, then you're spending a lot of time in the computer labs. If you have a, let's say, a management course or a marketing course, even then you have lot of reading to do, and a lot of pursuing um, other companies to find out what the real problems they have and then finding solutions to it. So it's not about just reading something and regurgitating the same. So that was and then the professors themselves were really good. One of the things I also learned was how do you teach. So when I was there, um, you also learn to manage your finances, because you're a lot of people there uh, work. So you have part-time work or full-time work. And I had applied for a math tutor's job, but I only had 10th level math from India. And when I went to the professor, all he asked me was whether I knew permutations and combinations, which I didn't. What he told me was go back, try to learn it, and come back and explain it to him. And I did that. I went and asked some engineering students to explain permutations and combinations, came back, explained it to him. And I think something in my explanation or my learning must have um, satisfied him that I would make a decent math tutor. And I was hired. And that was a huge learning experience to me, not only in terms of teaching, but also how to gauge a person's capability. Because if I just went on the fact that my math level skills were only so much, then the professor would never have hired me. So that was another learning that I had. Um, so then in my bachelor's, I got my operations research and information systems degree. Um, I went on to become a consultant in the US. What I learned by being a consultant in the US is that there is a lot of um, uh, lot of uh, mentoring from the senior consultants, and there is benefit in collaborating than competing. Continuing on to mm, my journey in the US, I was a consultant for about 5 years. And there I learned many things. One is to be self-directed in my learning. So I was a consultant for about 5 to 10 years in the US. And the, then because I was in Ann Arbor, I started working with startups. And that was a great experience for me because I encountered a lot of um, people who were designing new solutions to old problems. For example, one of the persons I encountered there, he was a art major, and he was flying between Detroit and Minneapolis, which is about a 2 hour distance by flight. And he was encountering certain problems with figuring out which flight to take and which gate to go to. And Detroit being a big airport, it was becoming difficult, especially with the changes in the gates assigned to the flights. And he had access to write a small application, and it became famous, or it became everybody started using it. And so Expedia came because he had 1 million users for the app. He was one of the entrepreneurs that I encountered in Ann Arbor. So what I learned over there was that people who are entrepreneurs have a passion for uh, the field or the work they have chosen. And as far as finances go, they can make ends meet. And so um the stress that other entrepreneurs have in India is not there. I'll come back to that a little later, um, because that is what I encountered in India. So I got back to India in about 2012. When I got back, what I liked about the US, I tried to replicate in India. For example, I love the libraries in the US. And I also liked the fact that um, the thinking was very logical. So when I looked around, uh, there were not that many, or rather, the libraries were very few, and they were also not good. So I started thinking about how do we solve that problem. And I encountered a few people who were sort of trying to tackle the same issue. And I teamed up with one other person, and we started something called Book Pool, which was basically an online library. So you could borrow and share books, or lend, borrow, share books. The problem we encountered was that we could not monetize it early enough. And there was a lot of pressure on my teammate to start earning. And in India, there's that extra added pressure of getting married, settling down, making money. So it doesn't give you that much wiggle room to follow your passion. And so most people what they end up doing is that they quit very fast because that drive is not there. Then the major impetus for them is to make money. So that was one of the things that was a problem that I saw. And then of course the ecosystem is not there. So basically in the US, one thing that most entrepreneurs did was that they would look for mentors, or rather, if they were asking for money, they would look for the money bags, but a person who had some kind of experience in their own field. For example, if they were looking for somebody in the field of education, then they would only take money from a person who had experience in it, because then they could connect them to other institutions or other entrepreneurs in the same chosen field. Whereas in India, the problem was that it was purely monetary or money based, and so it wouldn't go too far. Another problem that I found with the entrepreneurs in India was that the big picture was missing. So basically, what I mean by that is that in the US, if you saw a lot of the entrepreneurs like Facebook or Google or any of like PayPal, anything else, it was more about creating uh, big systems. Whereas in India, what I found was it was just using the systems already there. For example, you would find people using Facebook, using YouTube, using the systems that were already there. So the bigger picture was sort of missing. Um, and then, so then I started foraying into other fields um, because of my interest in sustainability and health. Uh, I got in. I got introduced to a lot of non-mainstream ideas like slow travel, like schools without teachers, um, travel without money, all these things. So I think it's. I've taken up quite a bit of time introducing myself. I would like to take up questions now. Hello.
Yeah, anybody?
I had a question. Um, so I didn't really understand the first point that you mentioned, right? About how in India there is a lot more pressure on if you're starting something new, if you're an entrepreneur, then ensuring that you're making money. That focus on monetizing is a lot more, even in the initial stages. And you mentioned something about when people look for mentors and only taking money from people who have experience in the same field. Can you elaborate a bit on that? I think I missed out some parts there.
No, yes. So, see, in the US, what happens is suppose I am trying to, let's say, design something, create an app, let's say. I can sustain myself by, let's say, working in a coffee shop or working as a waitress or doing odd jobs. Like I can do a lot of freelancing, and I can also tutor. I can do many things. For example, that you can't in India, or at least I have not seen any. So that, and then the pressure of getting married and then trying to sustain that particular, especially for men, there's a huge pressure to sustain the relationship, right? And you have to earn so much to sustain the relationship, which is not there in the US. And then as far as um, finding that uh, uh, the money, that suppose you need money, in India, what happens is there are not that many um, people who have expertise. So whoever is lending you money, who have expertise in a particular field. So, for example, a friend of mine in the US was looking for somebody in just the education space. He would take money only from the person who knew about his product. He wouldn't take money from anybody. Whereas in India, that choice is not there. So there is very little understanding from the people who lend you money and the help that they can give you. And so that curtails your um, your entrepreneurial activity.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, anybody else would like to ask any questions? I'm audible, right?
Sorry.
Yeah, anybody else like
Yeah,
to
I have
ask?
a question.
Yeah, Shairaj.
Ma'am, you said that in US, basically they create the systems, and in India, we follow that systems. We use that systems. How Indians can create that environment to create those systems? So that was my question.
Yeah, I think thinking big picture thinking is what is needed, I feel. For example, what I see mostly in a lot of fields that I work with, for example, farming, let's say, all right, everybody is everybody just follows whatever the new trend is. For example, agri tech, right? Everybody thinks about drones. Everybody is thinking about the newest gadget that they can give to agri-tech, for example, or how do you kill pest. Whereas the deeper understanding of agriculture is not there. If it was there, for example, right, you would have designed bigger systems, which is what is lacking today in agriculture. I can speak for agriculture because I've been working in that. Is that the connectivity is not there. So for in natural farming, for example, the connectivity is not there. So people are unable to, the buyers are unable to connect with the sellers are unable to connect with the buyers. So that is not there. So maybe we can create, so that would be a bigger system that can be created, where the sellers and the buyers can interact with each other and help. Right. So like Facebook is a platform. So basically, I guess I'm talking about platforms, creating platforms rather than users of platforms. For example, how many platforms have we created? How many, I mean, in India, we have good user base.
Yeah, and like most of the platforms that we have created have not been globalized in a way. Applications like Facebook and uh, other social media sites have done globalization of the.
Like actually, Telegram is created in India, but it was not actually globalized like the
Yeah.
But
other.
that's okay. I mean, that is good. I mean, I'm not really concerned with globalization, but it's a platform. So I'm saying yes, we do have a few. I'm not saying we are altogether not done anything, but I'm saying that big picture thinking is not there so much.
What we're talking about is essentially very similar to zero to one innovation, right? Typically, what we've been doing is simply taking what already exists and using it, or maybe making some minor changes to it. But
Yes.
we need more of zero to one innovation where we're creating something entirely new, something that can solve a problem which no one else is solving currently, something which has a new system to it altogether.
Yes, and the reason why I feel is that we don't think out of the box, right? And that has to do with the way our education system is set up, the way our society is set up, a little bit. I mean, it's for us to understand and try to overcome a little bit, right? And also maybe come up with our own solutions to the problem. For example, the one that I gave you about finance, right? I mean, the finance is a problem in India, and we cannot take the US system and plop it here, but maybe we can come up with something else, a unique solution to our own unique problem. But thinking needs to change. I mean, we need to be able to question, and the big picture thinking comes from questioning. We are taught not to question, right? We are taught to obey. So I think that is part of where the problem comes from.
I have one question. So aside from the factors that you mentioned about the current structure of the education system and how the society is built up in India, how it affects the entire entrepreneurial aspect. One thing that you mentioned is that you observed that how entrepreneurs in US, they are much more financially stable as compared to Indian, like not everyone, but majority of the Indian entrepreneurial sector. So is it also a factor that is to be considered, that can be considered in this, like that is affecting this particular scenario where people are mostly chasing money because of, because of they are searching out for money and they create companies and they create businesses because of that. They are not, choosing research and innovation aspect too much.
See, the passion is missing also, and the finance. It's not that they are more stable. It's more that they can make ends meet, and the social structure is not set up that way. The for example, the problem that I had with my one of the persons I was working with was that there was a lot of pressure from his family to settle down and get married, and settle down meant getting a job with an MNC, right? Whereas in the US, for example, that pressure would not be there. So it would be up to, let's say I have a partner that I'm working with, that pressure would not be there. One, they would be able to meet ends by working, like I said, you could work part-time jobs or whatever, full-time jobs also, and then take it, and then there's no pressure to like get married at a certain age, do certain things. So that is not part of the system over there. So it's not that they are financially stable.
So to introduce such a system in India, we need to essentially overhaul the entire cultural framework only, because the our societal structure is kind of embedded with how our culture is. Getting married and having, being in a system where not innovation and outside or no, outer innovation is not really appreciated. We mostly tend to focus on things that have already existed and build upon that.
Correct.
So, like,
So
how can we introduce that kind of thing in here? Like, how can we do it seamlessly without affecting the current scenario?
I I don't have too many answers to that, because it's a social system.
Yeah,
See, because even people coming from well-off backgrounds, and they don't really have a need to make ends meet, they still have that same pressure, right?
yeah,
So so I so it's a societal issue. We
yeah,
need to figure out. For example, maybe 20 years ago, the parents did not want their children to be anything other than doctors and engineers, probably. Whereas now it's okay. So things are changing. Maybe there needs to be a shift in thinking. And also, the reason why the people in the US are able to also um, be okay financially is that even in, let's say I'm studying in college, you are working, right? I mean, you are used to working. So whether you are working in as a part-time worker, as a gig worker somewhere, so basically you have work experience. So if you would be designing websites, let's say you would take on small projects, IT related projects, whatever, that kind of work atmosphere is there. Whereas here, it I don't find too many people with even a skill set where I can say, okay, I can give you a part-time gig, go ahead and do it, right?
yeah, I
So it's both.
understand.
So it's
Yeah.
both. I mean, I don't have a problem in hiring, let's say, even an uneducated, as in like seventh class, 10th class pass, whatever. I mean, I would hire them in the US to, let's say, design my web page or create um, an app for me or whatever. Here, there are very few people who can do that, right? I mean, that could be one of the things.
Yeah, that is true, but like one thing is also true, that like this entire scenario of how like there is an entrepreneurial shift in India also. Like
Yes.
gradually, many people are slowly moving towards getting themselves exposed towards this entrepreneurial system, and setting up businesses, coming up with newer ideas, creating innovative mindsets. But of course, I think the structure still needs improvement, or not improvement, but rather a shift in our mindset, I guess.
See, another thing that I find is that the tinkering is not there. For example, there, you're always figuring out how to do things, and then no job is beneath you. For example, cleaning, let's say, or I don't know, serving, for example, nothing is beneath you. And so you learn a lot, even with cleaning, right? I mean, you learn the right tools. Let's say if you want to clean something, so when I give somebody a job to clean something, I make sure that they have the right tools, because I know how it is to clean something. Whereas if I didn't know, I wouldn't give them the right tools. And that's the major problem. If you don't know, you are not a good manager because you don't know how the worker feels, or how is the worker going to handle a said task, for example, right? So
Yeah,
we need to have a lot of hands-on activity. I don't see that. So lot of problems that we have around us, we don't think about it.
yeah,
So
and
that's why I sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. So, a lot of like one thing that we often overlook is that when people in leadership positions or in leadership areas need to have a very important skill of cross functionality. They need to have the knowledge of all the sectors, or all the work of the people, or the people that are working, beside them in their company. And the work can be diverse. A CEO can manage and overlook the work of various sectors. So he or she need to have the knowledge of all of those sectors, not in-depth knowledge, but a superficial knowledge. So in that area, I guess, as you said, in India, we do not have the culture of working, or in college, we do not have the culture of working in areas, or in working small jobs or small gigs, which people in US have. So that is an area I think we still need change, right?
We do. And also see, the reason I stress on hands-on activity is that that gives you a lot of understanding of a problem. For example, I have stayed on farms and I have seen what it takes or what their problems are. I have tried to understand that. Whereas a lot of agripreneurs, so to speak, have no idea. They just come up with these technical solutions. So agripreneur means technical solution. So they'll come up with this, hey, this drone is going to do this for you, or this climatic conditions, we can turn this thing on and the sensor will fix it, right? Or the sensor will figure out, okay, today there was no rain, so we're going to turn the sprayers on. That is not so you're not understanding what the problem is when you come up with these solutions, right? It only comes from hands-on activity. So we don't have the right tools, for example, for a lot of things in agriculture. And the reason is because there are no agripreneurs who have done their job or done their research or tried to understand something. Because we are, for example, as a country of small farmers, our farmers mostly have 1, 2, 3 acres. We are not a country of thousands of acres that a farmer has, right? So we need to come up with tools for them. So that is not there. I'm just giving examples from agriculture because that's what I'm doing a lot these days.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? You can
Yeah,
ask.
I just wanted to know how you transitioned from your work as a consultant to working within agriculture. Like, what brought about that shift?
Well, I was a consultant for a period of time because I had a degree in IT, finance, and management, I guess. But my interest was always in figuring out things. So startups interested me, and when I came to India, um, I I saw a need in the agriculture sector because there is rampant use of pesticides, and so there's there's a shift to um, natural farming. So I I kind of diverted my attention there. I mean, I do a lot of things, but that's one of the things that I'm interested in because there's no one doing anything there.
I have one more question. So, the main issue that comes with sustainability is that businesses often do not adopt sustainable policies because it might become a hindrance in their current profiting models. It might hinder the current profits that they're having or the current revenues that they're generating. So, like, how can we convince businesses to adopt sustainable models along while keeping in mind to not hinder their profits that they're generating with time?
The word sustainability means that you can continue the way you were, right? So the reason why sustainability has come into the parlance is because we have destroyed certain systems. For example, we have destroyed the natural environment to such an extent that that system cannot persist. So even a company needs to realize what is sustainable for themselves and why they should go towards a sustainability route and how they can make it profitable. I mean, there are different reasons why a company would want to go that route and how, right? There are a lot of companies that can pass on the cost of doing certain environmental act, for example. For example, if it is about sustainability of the environment, then they can pass on the said costs to the consumers sometimes. Um, yeah, I mean, it'll be dependent on what action and what company, I guess. But it applies to people also. You know, for example, how am I being sustainable for myself? And sustainability doesn't even mean just about the environment. It can mean also about finance, for example. Like a lot of people, you know, they're not sustainable in terms of finance. They live paycheck to paycheck. That's not a sustainable way of living, right? Sustainability means you are able to uh, take care of yourself within a certain uh, system easily in case of a catastrophe, for example, in case of a risk situation, right? Whereas if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you will not be able to, and that's also sustainability. And you can think about sustainability in many ways, right? If you're concerned about the environment, for example, you can think of, okay, how do I influence a certain sustainable act? Like a sustainable act could be natural farming, sustainable act could be natural building, sustainable act could be natural clothing.
Yeah, I get that. I just need to I have one more question. So, let's say a particular business or a particular company has a certain way of working,
Mhm.
which might not be sustainable in any way. Now, if we are trying to introduce a sustainable way uh,
Mhm.
of working within that company or within that system, we need to have some sort of benefit. Some sort of benefits should be present there
Right.
that the company can uh, take in as a plus point to use that particular practice, sustainable practice. So I guess it is so I just wanted to get clarification on like do sustainable practices can, aside from the general image of the company or the reputation of the company, can sustainable practices also help the companies in any other way? Like, of course, sustainable practices have a overall benefit in the if I talk from the environmental aspect, then towards the environment. If I talk from the financial aspect, then towards finances. But just from the company's perspective, because if we go on ground, then most companies are already aware of the current situations that they're having, what kind of problems that their current working is causing in the society or in the environment as a whole. But they do not adopt sustainable policies because it hinders with their profits, revenues, or any other way towards the system that they're having. So, like, how can companies incorporate that? How can we tell the companies to take up those kind of policies, sustainable policies, and how can we show them that it is actually beneficial in some way or another? So,
If you're talking to me as a consumer, right,
yeah.
you speak with your purchasing power. For example, how much do you buy of a certain thing? Where do you buy it from? For example, if I buy, let's say, organic produce from a local farmer, I am creating a sustainable web there, right?
Yeah.
So then, let's say a company comes around and creates a system where they're encouraging this kind of local commerce. Then that is one way. So as a consumer, you can do a lot of things. Your money, so to speak, speaks. If you buy, let's say, clothing that is not impacting the environment so much, then you are encouraging those kind of businesses to proliferate, right? Or those kind of services to proliferate.
Yeah.
So it's a conscious.
Sorry, yeah, you can continue.
So it's a conscious choice. I mean, there's a lot of activism done in your financial life. You actually have a lot of what do you call you have a lot of impact by the money you spend. Suppose you spend the same money towards, let's say, a sustainable cotton versus polyester, then you know which company you're encouraging and which company you're not, right?
Yeah, I get it. It starts from the consumers, what
I mean, yes,
consumers.
as a consumer, you're very powerful,
Yeah,
very,
I
very
get it.
powerful.
Yeah.
So that's one. And then from business again, with businesses, it's manifold, right? They also have to be concerned about the finances, their bottom line. Sometimes companies can use sustainability as a gimmick. I mean, or as a selling point. They can say, oh, we are promoting this. We are promoting planting of trees, and the consumer would happily pay towards it. Or they'll say, you know what, we are procuring coffee from people who pay their labor well, right? We have heard all those things. So those are some ways that companies can do it.
I get it. Okay. Yeah. Anyone else have any questions? You can ask.
Yeah. So my question would be like, what is the current problem that you are trying to solve as in your startup? And how do you approach a problem to solve it?
Yeah. So the problem that I'm currently trying to solve is one of increasing the monies that a farmer gets, and the main way to do it is to add value to any product that the farm produces. So, for example, there are guavas, a lot of guavas produced this month. So I'm trying to figure out how to add value. So basically, I can create vinegar from the guavas. I can create leather from the guava leather from the guavas. I can create many things. And then another one is agrotourism. So I'm concentrating on this, and then another one is how to figure out value addition for weeds. What we consider weeds could be something that can be sold. So these are the three things that I'm concentrating on.
Okay, and how do you approach these problems? Like when you're trying to solve these problems at an organizational level, how do you approach them?
So basically, I create a proof of concept for value addition, right? So I took the guavas, I created these 3 or 4 things that can be made from them, and I tell the farmers that you can do it this way, and this is what it will add to your bottom line. One. Second, I share my knowledge of. I go to the farm. I make sure that I understand the kind of weeds they have or the plants that they call weeds, and then see how they can be used so that the farmer can use them rather than throw them away. So it's like throwing money away, right? So that's another thing, and I share that information with them. And the third thing is the agro tourism, right? So I am trying to right now create a platform for that where the farms can register, and then they can also create a schedule where they can invite others to visit them. So that's more on the IT side. But it's a little involved because the farmer doesn't have that much time to to get involved with agrotourism. So maybe it can be a different business altogether. So let's say somebody can form a company and they can approach all these farmers and say, hey, we'll set up a few cottages and we'll manage it for you. So that's the route I'm going with that.
So this agrotourism you told about, like who are the target audience that you are trying to like cater to, or what is this about, if you can explain it a bit more?
So the farms that I work with are all natural farms, right? So the atmosphere is really good. There are no chemicals on it, and there is a lot more diversity, and there is um, flora and fauna that can be explored. And there's a huge interest from people to sustain a healthy lifestyle, and a lot of people are eating organic or natural. So the consumers of such organic products themselves would love to visit the farms, right? And another is just anybody who wants to visit natural place. I mean, just a good place where the kids can maybe play with some animals. You would have some cows or chicken or whatever. And then also birding. That's one other aspect. Because it's a natural farm, there will be a lot of birds. So there are a lot of ways that agrotourism can be encouraged on these farms. So anybody and everybody would be interested.
Okay, thank you. And I also wanted to ask, what would be the like three books that you would recommend to us as an entrepreneurs or problem solvers?
As on, oh, one would be, what is that? Grassroots Innovation. That's a really nice book. Um, Another I like is, it's not about innovation, but it helps. Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Gatto. That's really, really good. And a third, because you would want to manage your finances, Intelligent Investor is a great read because it actually gives you a good understanding about finance. I mean, these are a little deeper books, but if you want light reads, then Freakonomics is good. Um, and actually, I see a lot of uh, books that can be read which are not directly related to the subject but kind of help you. Like, for example, I was reading this book about art of seduction, right? And it was about seduction in the way that, Casanova or any of those guys would seduce women. But then the whole time, what flashed in my mind was marketing, advertising. How advertising and marketing is exactly the same as seduction, because they're seducing you to buy something that you don't need. So a lot of times different books will teach you a lot of different things, but then there's cross learning.
Does that answer your question, something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we can take up a few reflections based on this entire discussion. We can go for three reflections based on the time that we have. Would like to go? Yeah, Pariti, you can go.
Right. So I think what I really realized is that a lot of the discussion that we had, it really aligns with the discussions that we've been having internally as a team within Deep Thought over the last few months as well. Like the need for, more zero to one innovation in India, need for more organizations that see the bigger picture, that have a bigger vision, that are more focused on creating a new system altogether instead of just using existing systems. And another point that really stood out to me was when you mentioned that a lot of people, especially in farming, there is a lack of in-depth knowledge, which is why they're typically just using solutions that already exist or only focusing on problems that others are also focusing on. But if there is more in-depth knowledge, then they can identify the problems that fit their context better, because the problems that farmers might be facing in US might not be the same problems that farmers might be facing in India. So that reminded me of the whole concept of first principles reasoning that we talk about a lot, breaking a problem down to really understand it from a root cause level, and then creating a solution for it so that it actually fits the real problem and not what you think is the problem that you're dealing with. And also the need for focus on experimentation, on taking risks, not just, chasing financial stability, but being okay with trying out new things, experimenting with things, even trying out different occupations which you might think they don't really fit your career plan, but all that knowledge ultimately ends up being useful to you in some way or the other. Just like knowledge from different books can be, transferred as per your context, knowledge from different occupations can also help you in the long term. So yeah, I think those have been some of my major takeaways.
One of the things I would like to add to that is that travel is a great teacher. I mean, there is a concept that is called a gap year. A lot of people, especially in Europe, tend to take it. And I myself have learned a lot by traveling. So that gives you a different perspective on things because you're meeting different people, you're going through different situations. Um, yeah, I think that's another way to learn and to incorporate it into your life.
Mm, Anyone else wants to reflect on this discussion? I guess, Sandeep, you can share a reflection.
Yeah, I'll go. So my reflection or insights would be around how experiential learning that you mentioned, by doing hands-on activities, we can learn new things basically. And as well as I got to know about the practice of sustainability, which is that the consumers like, or we must be the one to start it rather than asking the businesses to, you know, uh, to create more sustainable solutions. We must be the one to have that change and to create an environment where the companies themselves are, kind of like forced to build more sustainable solutions and build more sustainable systems which can help people. And another would be the concept or the new thing I learned about agro tourism, which was like making agriculture and tourism a combination of things where people can come to your farms and basically get a good time with nature. Yeah, that would be my whatever I could grasp from this. That would be my reflection.
Yeah,
I
that's
have
good.
Sorry, I have
Yeah,
also learned a lot in my journey, and a few unusual things that I have seen is that there are schools that are functioning without teachers, for example, or very few teachers, and are doing a great job. Like, I don't know if you have heard about Rishi Valley, Arohi. There is Sholai. So these are all schools that are kind of encouraging that kind of learning. And then there are some some people have gotten together and started a few sustainable enterprises, I guess. So one is Repair Cafe, which is started in Bangalore and has certain branches. So one is in Hyderabad. You can join it. These are all things that you not only are doing good for the environment or whatever you believe in, but they're also hands-on activities where you learn. For example, I saw a girl of 10 years old learn how to solder at this place in Hyderabad called Lamaka through the Repair Cafe. So, and then, whenever anybody has anything that they feel that they can probably get it repaired, they can come there and they can post it, and people will help them figure out how to repair. And that in the process of repairing, you also learn what it is all about. So these are some of the businesses that people have sort of started, whether they are for profit or not.
Okay, just one question in this. You mentioned about schools without teachers,
Right.
right? So,
So,
like, this particular concept has also been discussed a lot before, like several times in several places. One of the things that people often say and criticize in this particular aspect is teachers are the schools without teachers cannot essentially replace the human aspect that teachers, in-person teachers can provide to schools. So, like, how can we address that?
So you are thinking about digital teaching. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is the students themselves are teachers. So basically, you can think of how many times have you taught something and learned from it, right? So the students themselves are teachers.
Okay, so it aligns with like what you said about self-directed learning
Either
concept.
both. I mean, it is self-directed and also teaching each other. So peer-to-peer learning, for
Right.
example. So that is a very very great way of learning, right? For example, there's a school near Bangalore, Aravi, where I had gone, where the students themselves do everything. I mean, there are like, I think, three adults. That's it. And the student themselves come and say, this is what I want to learn. This is how I'm going to structure my day. And then if they have questions, of course, they have people to go to. So I'm not talking about digital. I'm not a big fan of digital, especially when children are concerned and when learning is concerned, because you learn a lot through your body. For example, once I was trying to learn hula hoop, right? And I couldn't get to hula hoop on my waist. So I tried it on my wrist, and somehow overnight it got transferred to my waist. So the body has an intelligence of its own. So, you know, so you learn through all your senses, not just visual or auditory.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I guess that pretty much addresses it. Okay. Jairaj, you can share your reflection if you want to ask some questions.
I have one more question, ma'am. Like, uh, there are, since you have stayed in the US for so long years, there are some differences in the education system of US and India, right? So basically, since childhood, I heard in India there are two options for a student, either an engineer or doctor. But in America, in the US, they have multiple options. They can go to the field where they are interested in. But India, we don't have that choice. So, like, what is the education system and culture over there?
So, see, one is that there is not a pressure from parents or the society to be one or the other. And the second thing is the structure of the university. So there is nothing like an engineering college or a medical college or anything. So in a particular university, you'll have everything. So basically, I could take some classes with, say, somebody who is trying to pursue medicine. I could be taking some classes who is trying to be, let's say, a dancer. I could be taking some classes with somebody who's trying to be an engineer. And so I can take all different classes, right? I can take one class that is talking to me about diseases. I can take one class that's teaching me how to use my body to traverse the space, or I could I could take a class on computers. So that's how the structure of the university is, and the university itself doesn't curtail you from taking classes. The only thing that they can say is, if you need to take this particular class, let's say, you need to take these 3 other classes before you take them. And also, they don't restrict you in terms of, I think here, I'm not sure, but there's probably an age limit or something if you want to be a doctor. Whereas I know people over there who have gotten their engineering degree and then worked and then decided to be doctors. So those are the few differences that I see.
So, ma'am, like, can we bring that culture to India?
Well, we can, but then we need to figure out how to integrate all that, right? Or at least we need to say, okay, even if you're an engineer and you've taken it, then you can still go on and be a doctor. I don't know what the hurdle is in India. I mean, I've not looked into that, so I have no idea. But that is one of the things in the US. Like, you can be an engineer and a doctor also, because you can take classes in both. You know, so you could be taking your medical course load. So you might have, they'll tell you, okay, if you want to get a degree in medicine, then you need to take these courses. If you want to be an engineer, you need to take these courses. As long as you take both, you can be both. So that's how it's structured over there. I don't know much about the systems here to say what can be done.
Yeah, I would like to take a reflection, like what I learned from you. Like, basically, I learned about how the difference culture that present in the US and India. Like in US, we have that choice to go in our interested field, where we in India, but we have that pressure for a person to go to interested field. So that's what I learned, and also about the sustainability of the entrepreneurs and the startups which are coming in India. So you need to, there is some culture difference, like that sustainability must definitely improve. And one more thing is we need to concentrate on creating systems. So when we have that knowledge on a particular thing, we can create systems, and that system can be, used by the users. Instead of using the present systems, we can create new systems. So yeah, these are the things what I have learned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of this discussion. Thank you very much, Ms. Rachita, for giving us your time.
Thank you very much. And I'm sorry for the rough start.
Oh, no, it's perfectly all right. Yeah, uh, we can conclude this session.
Bye.